Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we're doing another film journey. This time, this is the first time we've had two guests on from different places. So, but that's good. That's okay. I hope it looks good. I hope everyone can hear us all, and we'll enjoy this conversation. Rob and Steve, good friends of mine for the last half a year when we met. I'm really happy to have you guys on. You guys recently just rebranded your channel too. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Robert, you can go, I can go, whatever.
Well, it was actually a great idea by Steve. I must give Steve credit because I wouldn't have thought of it. Because I was always just sort of, well, let's just be the critics and the movie reviewers and the Siskel and Ebert type thing, which we still have.
Yeah.
But Steve felt that it lacked a specific sort of
identity
stamp on
identity. Yeah.
Identity. Yeah.
Just really quick, it's just, well, I found that Robert and I, like, our debates that would often happen after we stopped recording.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be us, like, in text and not angry, just like we're exactly what the channel is now. I mean, we're not that extreme, but it would be, well, I like this because I felt it's a movie, and then Robert would be like, yeah, but I found that really thoughtful. I'm like, you're a nerd. And so, but neither of us are that extreme, and so anyway, that's sort of how it's, I think, started. I'm like, we already do this. Like,
right.
You have a type of film you prefer, I have a type of movie I prefer, so
yeah, and it makes people think about the different ways in which stories are told. Like, if it's a Friday night and someone's with their girlfriend or boyfriend, it's, well, what do you want to? Well, what are you in the mood for?
Right.
And I think, what is that? When people say that, well, what do they mean? Do they mean strictly genre? But there are easy dramas, and then there are hard dramas, and there are even easy rom-coms and hard rom-coms.
I agree.
What does that mean? So then what's the difference really between a movie and a film? And it's, one is pure entertainment and one is maybe exploring humanity. So it's sort of that balance of, when does it work both ways and when does it only work one way? So it's sort of, it's educational, but in a fun way with the scorecards that Steve thought that we should invent, and a bit of, caricature and fun and stuff like that. And it's a bit of a game, right? So it's just, it goes into the way into the entertainment value, that works well on YouTube, as opposed to someone else, even though what I liked what we were doing before, but as opposed to simply being someone else reviewing movies. It's just another a way of doing it. So that's the spine of it.
Well, it's a nice transition, and like you said, it kind of came naturally. Nice. That's what makes sense.
I think when stuff comes naturally, it's funny, neither one of us, well, I can't really speak for the inner workings of Mr. Roberts' head, but I was never sitting like, we gotta do something. It was more just, I remember where I was too, and this is a long time ago. I'm like, oh man, I wonder if there's a way to do like caricatures of, the movie guy and the film guy. And I kind of threw it away. This is months ago. And then, I don't know. We were just sort of, what it was, and Robert will know what I'm talking about. When we did like all October, this past October, horror movies, that's all we did. And which I'm fine with, and Robert, not as much.
Which kept me up at night.
But someone
you're watching
disagreed with whatever it was, and they put like a meme that I thought was hysterical. And but it was to horror movies, and it said the two types of horror critics. And the first was how Robert looks right now with an espresso cup, and it said, the plot must coincide with the character development and for it to be a film. And the second one is a shot of Kurt Russell from Death Proof with a cigarette. And it said, fuck it, let's just watch Sleepaway Camp 3 again. And I was like, that's who we should be. That's because we kind of are those guys. So that stuck in my head. But anyway, yes, it came naturally.
Well, you see, you can always learn from people who even shit on you. And that guy was one of the most aggressive.
Well said.
He was one of our most aggressive haters.
Angry.
I mean, just
but inspired us.
Yeah, and I was like,
anger inspires.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to empathize with people, right? And you can learn from them, right? So
Well
that
said.
was that was we, you know, if you take those things with a grain of salt, it will, you know, it is feedback, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Give us your suggestions.
Can't always be good. Yeah, I will say something I have noticed. I mean, I don't get it too much, but I do know several people in our community that kind of get a little bit of a backlash on some things, which I think is healthy. I mean, obviously, you can't just talk about sunshine and flowers all the time. But I think it's interesting when, you know, you could do something like this and like kind of change it and like oh, we can use this. It's like it's hysterical, but you could also like, you know, use this in a way that like is like beneficial to both.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
no,
I
mean,
it is, right? Like you say, like backlash, like negative, it's inevitable. And it was just, again, not consciously, but ultimately, I didn't even really think about it till just now. We used one of the angrier critics, you know, that we had to our advantage. So
there
you go.
Yeah, silver lining to everything, right?
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
I'm happy for the name change, and I'm happy for the direction, and I'm excited to see where that goes in the future.
Thank you.
And
thanks, man.
So much.
Thanks for having me on. You know, I guess it was the end of last year when we talked about the new Hollywood movement. That was a lot of fun. So
that was that's one of our favorites. Yeah. That's something we do agree on.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Can always be a battle, but it'll be fun if it is a battle. So I hope that we can actually battle out our past a little bit here today, and see a little bit about both your backgrounds. But you know how the drill is. So we're early on. Whoever wants to, you know, answer this first, or, you know, take turns or whatever. But I guess my first question is, what are some of your early movie memories?
Did you want to go first, Steve, or?
Yeah, sure. All right.
Okay.
Earliest one, it's funny because I'm actually, I was just writing about it the other day. Memories, like I literally remember, like our guest Warren Sonoda yesterday, Star Wars, and these aren't like, I'm not answering like these are the most important, whatever, although Star Wars to me is the most important thing, but Star Wars is an early memory. So is Smokey and the Bandit. And a lot of horror movies. Like actually I remember Vertigo I saw when I was too young. I saw The Exorcist too young, and I saw Poltergeist when I was too young, but they all like way too young for The Exorcist.
You were next to the TV and the Poltergeist
messed me up.
That could happen to me.
Oh, Poltergeist messed me up for life in a wonderful way. Like I'm obsessed with that movie. Like I've got a consistent, Robert and I were talking about this before we came on, I have a fairly consistent top 10 list, and Poltergeist is in there. But anyway, those are some of my the real ones. Yeah, you know. And James Bond, actually, The Spy Who Loved Me was one of the first movies I remember seeing. But anyway, really the first films I remember seeing were like Star Wars, Smokey and the Bandit, and The Spy Who Loved Me. I remember those ones. Yeah,
those are good ones.
Yeah,
it's funny because I think most people they'll often say Star Wars or Disney, and I love that Steve not only said Star Wars but also horror films, adult horror films, which I love. But I had the Disney route. I mean, for me, early on, the first thing I can remember seeing in the theaters was Batman Returns in the drive-in. So that was 1992. So I was 5. And I remember vividly being really sucked into the Batman world, the Tim Burton world. And then another thing I can always remember is my mother would go to a hairdresser, and the hairdresser, her business was inside of her house. And I don't know how or why she knew, or maybe she showed it to me, but I was a big fan of Cinderella. So every time I went, she would say, "You want to watch Cinderella?" I'd go with my mother. And I can remember vividly being on the couch watching it. So those two I remember quite well. And then when I was 7, I became addicted to Lion King to the point where I memorized it. And I was playing hockey at the time, because when I was young, actually, I was pure a sports guy. I still love soccer, but I wouldn't say I love any other, and baseball. But I was a huge sports fan, pure sports guy. And I was playing hockey, ice hockey, and my dad would say, "We got to go to hockey." And I said, "But I'm doing the Lion King, you know, like I was just."
I'm
you know,
rehearsing.
I was acting it out, and I don't think they saw that as someone who was maybe interested in the arts, because I didn't come from an art family, so not to criticize them, but it was. But those three I remember really really well. But a lot of the Disney stuff for sure. Aladdin, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Did you have a cliff nearby your family home? That way you could actually do the Mufasa scene and like the.
Oh, that would have been cool.
With your friends.
Well, it's interesting now because now
they
did the John Favreau, like the I guess real life one. And my son loves it, but he now to the point where he doesn't even want to watch cartoons because he's like, well, I want to see the real thing. So it's interesting to see how kids are taking those movies in now. They like it's like they're moving away from the animation. They want it to be more real. So it's interesting to see how that's evolved. But yeah, for me, it was Disney until I was in my teens, really. Then I got more into the more serious kind of filmmaking and acting, and Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino and guys like that. But yeah, it wasn't until I was a teenager, really.
But no Exorcist or Sleepaway Camp 3.
No, I mean, it's funny. We actually just reviewed Exorcist, which is coming out tomorrow, and I saw that when I was 16. I don't know how old were you, Steve? You were even younger, I imagine.
Like 5?
9.
Oh,
9.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was my own doing. It was a kid in our school. This kid, I remember Anthony. It doesn't matter. But there was like a video store near us, and he was like, "Oh man." And I guess he was traumatized, like looking back on it, like, and he needed to share. You ever like see something disgusting?
Yeah, and you want to show it to
whatever, and you're like, "Oh, you got to see this."
Yeah,
because it upset me. I want you upset as well because it'll alleviate. So he's like, "Go rent this movie." He couldn't think of the name, but he described the case, like this guy with a briefcase or fedora, whatever it was. So
street
like,
light, something
yeah,
going
street
on.
light, whatever he said. I figured it out, and I didn't know anything. And they didn't give a shit. Yeah, here. And I just went home, and I honestly, and I think we've talked about, or I've talked about this anyway, and it wasn't even like the obvious stuff that got me. And this is like a sign of, I think, really good filmmaking is even the kind of, the prologue, but all the stuff that happens before sort of shit hits the fan is unnerving. Like there's something it's not joy, like there's something in the filmmaking that's like, and I do remember like on my little VHS in my bedroom watching it and just like knowing like I shouldn't look at this. And then by the time, this crucifixes in the blood, and I couldn't finish it. And I returned it, and I thought like, how dare you? And then I had to go back like, a few weeks later. And then
what did your mother think of you watching?
I was going to say, how did you get
I want to hear insane.
I'm
going to say, this is insane. No, this is insane. So I was shocked and I was upset. And I just remember, and to this, like, it messed me up for the rest of my life. But I couldn't finish it, but I was obsessed. Like, where can that go from what I just saw? And so oh my God, bless my mom, so patient. And she's like a working single mom. So she just, whatever, Steve, what do you need? So I rent it again. And like maybe a week later, I don't know. And I make her sit beside me and watch it.
Oh my God.
And she's like, okay. And once it gets to the point that I couldn't watch before, I leave the room and have her dictate it to me until the end credits. What's happening? Well, she's floating in the air. The body of Christ compels you. And I can hear that. And I'm like, what is it? What? But I had to, and she's like, okay, it's over. I was like, okay. And then I rented it again like a month later and sat through it. And I was like, oh, God damn it. And anyway, and a love affair was born.
Okay, we'll just watch this.
Yeah, whatever.
And it all started from there.
Yeah, I just went sideways from there.
Oh, this is I have a similar memory with the movie Signs.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so like
the Mel Gibson, yeah.
Yeah, well, when that first came out, I think early 2000s or something like that, maybe 01,
like 2000, 2001.
But I was around 9 years old, 10 years old around that time period, so I didn't want to watch scary movies. And I remember I was downstairs and my mom was watching the movie, And I sat down and watched it too. And then there's I don't know, have you both seen the movie?
Yes.
No. I actually haven't seen that. So I haven't seen it.
Well, there's a birthday.
Yeah,
you don't want to. Yeah. Well, the ending's
I know the moment. I know the moment.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the birthday part. There's a birthday party scene that is like probably the scariest part of the whole movie. It's just like a home video thing, and I don't know what it is, but like once that happened, I just like bolted upstairs, and I was like, nope, can't do this anymore. And then I asked my mom what happened in the movie the rest of the way through.
See, yay for moms and horror. No, that moment you're talking about is always, it reminds me, like, you've seen that like 1960s Bigfoot footage? That's what that looks like. Like there's old, like someone captured Bigfoot on like 16 millimeter. No, but the Bigfoot thing was supposed to, like, people thought it was so serious. YouTube it, and it's exactly what M. Night Shyamalan did. It's this grainy. Anyway, it's effective. The Thing in Signs. I know exactly what you're talking about. But very effective.
Yeah. So Rob, did you have any horrifying moments after Disney?
Well, I never watched anything scary. I mean, to this day, I get scared. Scared very easily because I am not a horror fan. So when Steve and I were watching all those horror movies in October, I mean, geez, like I was messed up, man. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, The Haunting I'd seen before, which I love, but it scared me way more.
That's been a very effective 60s movie.
Yeah, it's great. Man. It's a great movie, and it scared me to death. And then my dad came over a few days later to drop something off, and he said that movie's not scary at all. But I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Okay, Dad.
But yeah, I don't know. He doesn't get scared easily. Even my son asked him, "Did The Exorcist scare you when you saw it in the movie theaters?" No. Okay, I don't know. But anyway,
skips every other generation.
Yeah, I guess so. But the earliest thing I can remember, and it's not scary at all, but Jurassic Park. I was 6 when that came out.
Yeah,
that scared the shit out of me. Like I can vividly remember going to bed and then looking through the window to make sure there wasn't the T-Rex eye staring through. But other than that, I stayed away from scary stuff. My parents didn't watch anything scary. I remember my brother watched The Sixth Sense. When that came, to this day, I can't watch that. I can't.
That's scary.
Anything with ghosts coming in, like I can't. But I remember my brother would come into my room for like a month because at night because he couldn't sleep. So we were not, and I was like, I'm not watching that. And so I was 12 by then. He was like 16, right? So we were not exposed to horror film. And to this day, I got to take a few breaths. But that's the earliest thing I can remember. Jurassic Park. I can't remember much else being really scared. I think that's about it.
Blocked. All the memories are blocked.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I tuned them out.
Yeah. Well, I guess the next step for both of you. So Disney horror / Star Wars, once you both kind of got into your teenage years, what was the next transition into adolescence? What did you start watching?
Well, for me, I know easily it was a few things happened at once. And I've talked about this too. My uncle, my father's brother, really kind of like, in hindsight, like educated me. Like he with music, he took my dad had died when I was a kid. And so he took my dad's record collection, which was like everything from the 50s, 60s, and just said, hey man, and it was never like, this is important, listen to this. So it was just cool. It was like, hey, listen to this. And then when you're done, put that on. And I would just sit, I didn't have like, you would just sit and listen to like the two sides of a Beatles record or Chuck Berry or
the way it's supposed to be listened to. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, up until like whatever, like Kiss was like one of the last records I guess my dad bought. But anyway, and then with movies, he sort of did the same thing without making it like an education. So I was watching, Star Wars or whatever I was watching, but specifically it was The Hustler and Cool Hand Luke. He was really into those. And he loved Paul Newman, and he kind of introduced it like what I really remember is I was watching, whatever, like cop action, I don't know what. And he was like, oh, you like cop movies? And then he rented like The French Connection. So I watched it as though it were like a shitty cop action movie. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't go into it like, oh, do I take notes? You know, and so
like Rob would, right?
Like Rob would, yeah. And so I really got to just be entertained by, yeah, the French Connection, the Hustler, or whatever. And at the same time, he was like, you know, my uncle said on Saturday nights you should watch in Toronto. We had this show called, and Robert knows, Saturday Night at the Movies, which was hosted by this guy Elwy Yost, and it was on like cable act, like kind of like our PBS,
right?
Commercial free, and it was just a guy who knew a lot about movies, and he would show 2 old movies commercial free. And so I remember specifically one night, like, okay, I'll watch this, and I was like 13, 14, and it was A Place in the Sun and A Streetcar Named Desire, and I was like, these guys are cool, man. And you know, later I'd learn, well, Stanley Kowalski is actually a piece of shit, but in the moment as a young kid, you know, he's got muscles and, you know, he's handsome,
right? Got a
and
cool
Montgomery
factor.
Clift, and again, and I'd seen Cool Hand Luke. So anyway, all that to say, I was like really into these, like, that generation of like cool actors and all those movies. And then it just, you know, you eat one chip, you got to have them all. So I started finding more and more, but that was it.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if Steve was done. That's why I hesitated.
Yeah.
Go ahead. We have to start saying over to the film guy, over to the movie
and now
guy.
Over to the movie film
Yeah.
guy. Yeah. I'll start doing that.
Well, like I said, I actually wish I had the experiences of Steve. I think Steve really grew up with movies, and I really didn't until I was 16. Of course, I like movies. I mean, like in a general sort of way, and we would go to the movie theater, and my parents also would bring us. They didn't really, if something was R-rated, if we were with them, they didn't care. So we did see different things in the theaters, but I was never truly engrossed. I do remember glimpses of, like, maybe seeing a commercial or something where a shot on Taxi Driver and my dad saying, "Oh, that made De Niro a star," and just a curiosity about that. And then I can remember on a Sunday afternoon, Dog Day Afternoon was on TV, and we all watched it. Yeah, when I was 12, and I just remember, like, I just knew I liked it. I knew I was attracted to it, but then just moved on, like, and that was it. But it was when I was in high school, really. I remember seeing the Godfathers, and again, just being kind of sucked into them, but still not having any real interest in film, just noticing that these were different. And then really it was a friend of mine when I was almost 16. A couple of my friends told me, you got to watch some of these gangster movies. So I really got into like A Bronx Tale, the one De Niro directed that I really love, and Donnie Brasco, and Goodfellas. Well, I had seen Goodfellas before as well, but watching it again, in Casino and Scarface, and I started to get really interested in that genre and those actors: Pacino, De Niro, Joe Pesci, Harvey Keitel, and I just noticed that there was something different about this style of filmmaking that I hadn't seen before. And then all of a sudden, there was this AFI tribute to De Niro, where they gave him the AFI award, Lifetime Achievement. And that got me interested in him and in acting and how he transformed. And I couldn't believe that the same guy who was in Mean Streets was the same guy in Godfather 2 and Bang the Drum Slowly and Deer Hunter. He seems so different in every single role. And then that summer, I became obsessed. And this is, of course, back when you still had, people would go through the TV guide to look at what movies were on. And I found, and I would highlight anything with Pacino, anything with De Niro. And that whole summer, I watched everything that I could find. This is, again, before streaming. We got a DVD player then as well, and then I started buying DVDs. And then from there, it was, then I had a friend who put me onto William Friedkin and watching the 70s. I mean, that was really the stuff then, like, that we highlighted in our video where you joined us, Nathan. Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, recognizing that I think I recognized myself in them, because they sort of had a Mediterranean look, an everyman look, and they had a toughness that I I think I wished I had in myself that I didn't have. And the irony is that the guy that put me onto these movies was such an asshole, to the point where we got into a fight in the hallway. And because I had just seen Goodfellas, part of my mind, I just said to myself,
"Here's
"You're
where the
Jimmy
horror comes in."
Conway. You are De Niro as Jimmy Conway," and I punched him on the chin. And I remember that to this day. And then later on, he said he was going to kick my ass if no one else was around. And I said, "Well, why didn't you?" So, I'm like, and so that it gave me a bit of, and then I started acting, and those feelings started to pour out. That I became, those insecurities that I became in touch with. But though it was really the guys of the 70s and those actors that I mentioned, and I just got hooked. And I think once you get to Scorsese and those directors, then you start to look at the movies that they liked, and then I started to look at foreign cinema. And to this day, I still keep looking back. I'm just fascinated by history, and there's so much I still want to explore and see, and things that I've just discovered probably in the last 3 or 4 years. But that really led me on that journey of borderline watching a movie a day from the time I was 16.
Well, this actually, I think, is a good transition, because you mentioned it too, and I know both of you are actors. So how did that transition into when you were, I don't know, when you started acting, maybe in like high school or drama or something like that, maybe in high school or college, but what were those transition years where you started appreciating all these films, both of you, and then you started being like, okay, maybe I want to be a part of this in some kind of capacity?
It's that. So I again, I can say this looking back, I didn't know any of this consciously at the time, but honestly, I knew somewhere in my brain I wanted to be involved in storytelling since probably I saw Star Wars, and definitely when I watched the old Twilight Zones, like I wanted to do that. And in hindsight, I probably wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know that was a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was young, like I didn't know.
It's not seen, right?
Exactly. And then sort of like Robert's story, I think, like maybe a lot of people, certainly me, by the time I was 13, 14, I was terribly insecure, and no dad, like, what is a man, all that. I didn't ask that like intellectually, but I probably felt that. And so, finding, okay, not De Niro and stuff, but Paul Newman or Steve McQueen and James Dean, I wanted to be them. And so I thought by the time I was like toward the end of high school, so I'd taken acting class by this point, and I was doing music and writing. I did all of the stuff. And I remember my mom sending me to this like workshop, a summer camp for nerds, where it was like video camp, and you make like little movies. And I wanted to be like James Dean, man. And when the thing ended and they showcased our projects to all the parents, this other kid got singled out as like, the best. They were giving awards out, and the best actor, and it wasn't me. And I got best writer and editor, and I'm like, oh. But looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, because that's truly what I was actually more interested in. Like, I'm more of a writer, but I just didn't know that was a job. And like you, because I couldn't see it, but I knew acting was a job because I thought those guys were cool. So that seemed like the only kind of understandable way into storytelling was the acting, because you see it, and they're like rock stars, right? And you get the girl and you're cool and all that. And so, okay, you kind of read biographies, and what did James Dean or Brando do? Okay, you go to learn method acting or whatever. And so I just did that. And I've told Robert this, by the time I was 23, I'm like, yeah, I've kind of had it. Like, I still act, if anyone's watching. And I have moments where I do enjoy it, but I don't have the fire I think Robert has. But for writing, that's my jam. Like, and as I got older, I could, I do look back at, Indiana Jones, whatever it is, and be like, yeah, man, like, I want to tell stories, but that more that way than being in front of the camera. I do enjoy being in front of the camera occasionally. I just hate auditioning. To the point where I just won't go. but yeah, that transition was really, it was me figuring out ultimately that I wanted to be a writer, and just not knowing what that looked like, but knowing, as you said, Nathan, what acting looked like. So
Right.
I guess that's my way in. And so, yeah, from the end of high school right into acting school, like by the time I was 18, 19. Yeah. That's over to you, Robert.
Over to the film guy.
Yeah, to the film guy. Well, for me, I was finding something with these movies that was a real love, and I didn't know why I loved them so much. I thought it was another phase because but I think I don't think I realized that phases with kids were normal. I'd get really into music. I'd get really into WWE wrestling. I'd get really into Power Rangers when I was a kid, and like I said, Disney and hockey and soccer and sports, and I would be all over the place. So I saw it as another phase, and then suddenly there was an announcement at school that they were casting a musical called A Night at the Oscars. They were going to do Academy Award-winning scenes from films as a play called A Night at the Oscars, and they needed actors to audition, people to audition to act in it. And I said, a friend of mine who I knew was in it was part of it, and I wasn't in the drama club. I wasn't part of any of that stuff. So she said, well, they need guys because there's not a lot of guys are going to audition. So she brought me to the drama room, and they had monologues on the door to memorize to audition. And I looked at it, and I was like, I'm not memorizing this. She begged me to do it, and I said, okay. And then in that weekend, I couldn't put it down. I remember, we go to my grandparents every week, and I can remember reading it over and over and over again because the audition was that Monday. And I memorized it like that. And then I did it in front of my parents, and I was doing it sort of like Jimmy Caan or someone. I was trying to channeling the Italian American, the gangster films that I was watching, to the point where when I went to the audition, I said to the drama teacher who was going to be directing the acting scenes, we got to do Raging Bull, we got to do Godfather. I said he's like, well, I have to approve what you're suggesting. And I said, I'll bring the tapes. I'm going to bring my VHS tapes. I'll show you what scenes we can do, Godfather, stuff like that. And he said, well, you got to audition first, hang on. And then if you get in, we'll have a look. So I auditioned. He really liked my audition. And the next day he told me I was cast. And again, it was just this, I always tell my acting students, you have to obsess over the art form because it will drive you forward in how challenging the industry is, that passion. And that to this day really still means so much to me just to get picked. If I didn't get picked, if I didn't hear that announcement, I don't know if acting would have really happened. So yeah, from there, he approved Raging Bull, he approved The Godfather, and it was so funny because in the midst of this musical, when they were doing, Chicago, scene from Chicago, and then what else did they do? Fiddler on the Roof, and then boom, Godfather, and then to the point where the music department thought, oh well. Okay, well, we'll do the song to it. And they played the song. Same with Raging Bull. I was like, well, check out the score. I was like, suddenly I'm the director. So yeah, it was just, it was a time of my life. And again, I was able to channel that toughness that I felt I lacked. I wasn't conscious of it at the time. I just wanted to be De Niro. I wanted to be Pacino. I wanted to mimic those guys. I didn't necessarily even want to be an actor. I just wanted to recreate it. And I enjoyed it so much, the rehearsals, and suddenly how it felt on your feet in front of an audience, as opposed to when you're rehearsing. It's a very different thing. The energy, the back and forth from the audience changes the performance. So that was just like, it was like, heroin needle, I was addicted. Like the bug was there, to the point where I started to think I could do it. And I told my drama teacher, and he said, well, it's very hard. He's like, it's very hard, but you know, if you want to do it, just, you know, go study after high school, go into it. And I did. So he really encouraged me. He came to see a few of my plays. I haven't seen him in years, but he encouraged me. You know, my parents were very hesitant. You know, I came from a family that believed in, you know, job security and doing things very, very safe and conservative, and that is above all where you should go, as opposed to following any sort of passion. So that was difficult. But like Steve, yeah, I went right after high school right into went right into acting school for the next 3 years, and then I was, you know, there you go. Then I was in the, and I still am obsessed with it. I still, even though I do other things, I would say that my essence is my heart is really, if I had to pick one thing, as an actor.
It sounds a lot like both of you kind of found your identity with, like, as you were kind of going through that process of early on, you would be exposed to these movies, either if it was terrifying or Disneyfied or whatever, and then eventually get to where you're at now, which I think is really telling. And hold on, sorry. I'm just getting choked up, you know. It's the weather here. But no, it makes me think a lot of where you guys are both at now, with both your channels and also your careers, and then how you interact with both film and movie, or how, you know, either or. I think it's really interesting because something that I don't think I've actually talked about much with this film journey with other people in general is identity, and also just kind of identifying yourself within the medium itself, whether that is through, like, maybe writing or acting, or even like interacting with it in some kind of, you know, obviously we all do this through YouTube, so that's how we're interacting with the medium in some kind of capacity. But it got me thinking, both of your stories kind of, I mean, I don't work in any fields particularly necessary, or I guess they are glued to film or movies or anything like that. I teach, but I do teach public speaking, which to an extent is acting.
Absolutely it is.
It is.
And that's the one thing that I would say that I love that back and forth that I get if I get engagement with my students, or if I get engagement with maybe a speech that I'm giving, or they're giving a speech and I'm seeing that they're really passionate about it. You know, that's, I think at the end of the day, something that I think all of us probably share is the fact that movies and films have brought us confidence, and has brought us into ourselves. And I think I like to showcase that in some kind of capacity when I teach. But I also hope that people who are watching this right now can also see that in all of our works. So.
No, absolutely. And just to touch on that, like I always say, to me, the success is not what's in someone's bank account or what their career is or what they own, but it's are they an individual? I think that's the most successful one can be, is to truly embrace their individuality, even if that maybe there's consequences to that within your, you know, community or your family and so on. But yeah, I mean, I think if you can really be who you are, that's the best that you can achieve in life, really.
So I guess this makes me think a good transition, I think, here would be, I guess currently, you know, we'll get the serious stuff here out of the way, and then we'll get to some of the fun stuff. But what currently do films and movies mean to both of you? I suppose we've kind of danced around it, or maybe we've mentioned a little bit, but what would you say currently, where you're standing or sitting right now, what would you say they have done for you?
I think hugely, like right now, I'm going to try to stay as in current as I can to answer your question. Not go, well, it meant. No, I think, I actually wrote about this not long ago, because if I'm, for me, feeling bummed out or lethargic, or because we're in Toronto still in lockdown, kind of claustrophobic, and I didn't do this by design. I only figured I put on movies the way people put on the radio sometimes. Like I will put on just there, like a painting on the wall, you know, and I may tune in once in a while in the midnight, and each day will dictate a different, like, I just want goofy 60s comedy. I want some Blake Edwards, or I want just put it there, you know. Another day, I'll, you know, for whatever reason, Fridays are 80s day for, I need to put on 80s, you know, John Hughes sort of movies, but just in the background. Like, I won't really sit and watch it. But all that to say, they bring me, and certainly hope too, not to sound cliche or cheesy, but I literally mean that when I'm just like, like, what am I, you know, and then I'll watch something, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. That's it. Like the way a kid has a rock star poster, like, I'm not intimidated by that guy. I'm going to be that guy. And so I kind of get like, they serve that, or at the very least serve as a sort of surrogate tourism. Like, I can get out of the house by putting on a movie, an escape, really. And so either they are inspiring me, or they're at least letting me escape. But even the ones that inspire me, I don't think I ever put on a movie like, I want to be inspired. It's just so I put on whatever to go with my mood. It's a Wednesday, I feel like, you know, whatever 70s gritty thing, whatever it is. And, you know, in between working with Robert or doing my other stuff, I might look over at a scene and be like, yeah, man. And I'll just literally get like a buzz, like, yeah. And at the very least, as I say, I'll just look over and be like, cool. Yeah, I'd like to be there right now. Oh, well, one day. But they're always on. Silence, to quote Cassavetes, silence is death. I believe that. I need movies going, and I'm a wild music fan, than that. But I tend to get my music from movies, score or soundtrack, whatever. But yeah, they're either making me like, yeah, man, or at the very least, let's pretend we're there. Over to you, film guy.
Well, it's a good question, because I know that this is something that a lot of people have been asked over the years, of what do movies mean in a nutshell. And to me, I think Marlon Brando said something different when you watch his Dick Cavett interview. You know, he would put acting down and the industry down and stuff like that. And I don't think he was being totally honest with his feelings, but there's something he said about just movies in general. At least the stuff he was being offered. He just said, well, there isn't any value in it. Not that there isn't any value in movies. He was saying that perhaps a lot of stuff he's getting offered. And Sean Penn touched on this as well when he died, which was he couldn't get, it was either just a job for money, but if it had value, he could get behind it. And even so much as in 1989 to do a Dry White Season for free, a guy who at this point was trashing acting, trashing the industry, had not even been in a movie for 8 years. You got to ask yourself why. And to me, there's something to that. What is the value in what I'm watching? And what I really like is to see things about exploring human relationships and exploring worlds that perhaps I don't know, or learning something about myself or others, and empathy, and what it's like if we really did say what we feel. And because I think, you know, art is not life, but it shows you what life could be, or it does show you what life is. If we have a voice, if we use our voice, if we express ourselves, and how hard that is. But just learning about people and psychology and emotions, and that to me is just the true value. I don't think I'd be who I am without my curiosity for others, and I think that has really come from being an actor, and then being that's why art is so important for education, for people to be able to understand others, because it's easy to write people off. That being said, touching on what Steve said, I think having escapism and pure entertainment, there's value to that as well, because we need that. Even Cassavetes said if everything was like his movies, that would be boring, and that's true. You do need things that are pure fun, that are pure escapism, that are meant to, get out of whatever is maybe going on in your life. I mean, for me, if something's happening to me, I like to relate to something so I can go back to something maybe harder. But I love the movies as well. I mean, do I think perhaps there's too much of that nowadays as opposed to the other? Yeah, probably in a Hollywood sort of fashion. But that, in a nutshell, to me is really the value in it, which I sort of hate when people say, well, that's just a movie, or these are just movies, who cares? And it's like, no, that's so ignorant, because they're important. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, I'm glad that in this current moment, I mean, obviously we're still all going on our own journeys, that we're still figuring things out. But I'm glad that, it's all led to both of your kind of discovery of who you are, and then also the empathy of others, and understanding, like, everyone's different, because some people need escapism sometimes because people are going through stuff, especially right now, obviously.
Yeah.
We're in lockdown here too, not a little bit less controlling, I suppose, because it's United States. Here we are. If anyone's watching this, you understand, from the US, if you are there. But yeah, it's interesting that people kind of tackle things differently, because everyone's going on these different journeys themselves. So, but I'm glad that we're all doing that in our own ways. But let's move and transition to something fun. I was going to ask, associated with all these memories that we've that had are pretty good. I wanted to ask you if there's any bad memories that you have when you recall growing up, because obviously I know Steve talked about maybe in October he had Rob had some bad memories in October, with some recent things. But was there anything growing up besides, obviously, Steve, you said like your mom kind of told you the plot as it was happening. Was there anything else that like kind of scarred either of you in your adolescence or early adulthood, where like you have any memories, or like maybe even like bad theater experiences or acting experiences too?
You mean just from watching a movie that like did something to us in a bad, like, is that what you mean? Or
you could take it either way. You could say anything that you watched growing up, or like anything that you experienced like it wasn't even the movie itself. It's just like there was something going on around that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, if you're in a theater and someone vomited on your lap. I didn't have that. Yeah, I'd say like it's ultimately good, and I said this earlier, but like I was too young to watch a lot of what I watched, and I don't chastise like my mom, like, again, single, like, Jesus Christ, like I was such a handful, like she just, what if it keeps you quiet, Steve, whatever. So, and I didn't know like all the stuff I was watching was like bad, or that kids shouldn't, like I didn't know. It's whether it was Disney, there was a little of, because my mom at the same time, she'd narrate The Exorcist, but she also took me to see like Cinderella, and they put out like, and Fantasia on the big screen.
That's a movie that scared me as a kid.
Which one? Fantasia?
Yeah,
it's intense, actually. No, but the sensitive, like, or not sensitive, sensation, like it's jarring. But yeah, I was definitely scarred, it's a big word, but affected by the horror movies. I saw a lot of horror movies when I was a kid, and it didn't desensitize me to anything. In fact, it like I don't know, it cracked something in me, and I got obsessed with horror. Like, as a writer, I write a lot of it's funny, I was thinking, I've had this told to me by a few people that have read my stuff, and for all of my movie, non-film, whatever, commercial movie, I tend to, I don't mean to do this, but write films like a little more than popcorn things, and they're all upsetting, and and not like in a obvious, like they're not horror genre movies, they're to me just dramas. But I remember a guy at a TV network here during the pandemic read a pilot to a TV show I wrote. I'm like, are you looking for this? Because he was like, well, we're looking for a drama, family, and kind of whatever. And I'm like, well, I wrote this. It's kind of based on a version of my childhood. Anyway, he read it and sent it back and went, that's really dark. Like, we can't make that. And I'm like, oh, to me, that's just life. And I was like, oh, fucking crazy. And I wonder if it doesn't have, I don't think my upbringing wasn't hard. Like I was very comfortable, but I wonder if my exposure to, be it like ghost horror movies, which scare me to this day, but I will watch them, or the slasher shit that never really scared me. It was just like reading a comic book, but I watched so much of that. I still wonder if it, so I don't know if the word's desensitized, but skewed what I think is drama. Like, no, it's just a drama. Steve, that is the most upsetting, intense thing. And it's not because I have anyone dying. I think it's just the tone I will put in what should be a normal dinner scene is just really heightened
so
and
much
nervous.
Weight. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think so. All this to say, I don't know that it was a bad experience, but yeah, but I use it to any advantage. There's a silver lining in this is I think I ended up making myself a very nervous person. And I think I work that out now in writing. I don't know about it in acting. Acting, I just do whatever the guy wrote, but in the writing. So I don't know if I can't think of like a bad cinematic experience I had. So, but I'd say overall, I might have induced a nonstop panic in myself with all the creepy violence, whatever I watched at a really young age. But I'm fine.
All this to say, everybody who's watching this
I'm fine. I don't know. I think that's it. To the film guy.
It's a good question, and it made me think, because at first I thought, well, I can't think of anything. But if I'm really honest, I thought it was funny that the Safdie brothers in the interview they have on the Criterion Channel called film buffs the disease of cinephilia, which I love. And I was even thinking of doing a skit with Steve that I mentioned where a doctor tells a guy he's got cinephilia. No one take that. Anyone watching, it's mine.
They
it's
shouldn't
ours.
have said it.
I shouldn't have said it. No,
gotta make it fast after this.
Yeah. No, we're making it soon. I will say one thing. I think I really that I sort of missed, which I misread, which was that in order to perhaps be in the arts, which is true to an extent, you have to put the blinders on and have tunnel vision towards whatever you're trying to reach. And I always really believed in that, and I do to an extent. However, I think as a result of my obsession, my passion for acting and the arts and being an actor and movies and making movies and stuff like that, I think my ambition was so huge to the point where I definitely perhaps hurt people around me. So I think sometimes when things are happening, you have to be able to accept when things don't always go the way you hoped. And I think I had a real point of view that I couldn't let go of, to the point where I was willing to destroy things around me and myself, which luckily I was able to repair. As we all make mistakes, but that's one thing that I think is really essential for our people who work in the arts to, because people will talk about, well, you got to do this, you got to have drive, and this, and it's true. But when things don't go your way, it's also essential to let those things happen, because you can't control everything. You will fall on your face, you will make mistakes, you will hurt people, and I think I did let my obsession hurt me. But I learned from it. In terms of just like movies that really were bad experiences, is House of a Thousand Corpses. was probably one of the worst experiences I had watching a movie. I hated it so much that to the point where I even said this to Steve. Well, who the hell is Steve Chambers, my partner on this, that he's recommending this and we got to review it? A fury came over me. But on another one that Steve and I both agree on, well, I shouldn't speak for him, but I do remember you, Steve, telling me you hated. This was Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. which is another.
That was just too much. Yeah.
Yeah, which is and Man Bites
I wouldn't
Dog.
say hate. We talked about. I don't hate any movie, but I found it.
Not your cup of coffee or tea.
But it was effective.
I mean, it's you know, and Man Bites Dog is another one, and whether these are meant to be satirical or, you know, it's just like, you know, okay, you want to. Why do I need to see? What value do I need to see in someone who's a true serial killer who doesn't get caught or doesn't whatever? I mean, sure, you can say that happens, but why are we just showing that with any kind of consequences or any kind of? I mean, you know, it's just I just don't think it leaves a very good message or taste in people's mouths. You know, and as much as I love Scorsese, even Wolf of Wall Street to an extent, I didn't like, is the guys. That's true. I mean, you see that so much nowadays, people getting away with these things as long as they're rich. And I think this film really shows that. So it makes you think, but I have problems with that. What's the real value there? I mean, even Wall Street is a movie. Michael Douglas would say, you know, people would come up to me and tell me I became a stockbroker because of that. And he'd be like, why? Didn't you see the end?
Yeah.
and then you know, but there's a consequence. And for Wolf of Wall Street, I'm like, well, what is that going to do? You know, is that going to inspire that kind of behavior, or I don't think a lot of people are going to be thinking, oh, this is a lesson. You know, I don't think you can take that for granted. Maybe more film buff people can see it that way, but when you're seeing this thing as Oscar nominations, and I you know, again, I love Scorsese, but that was not my favorite thing. It just, those things leave a bad taste in my mouth, but that's just my personal feelings about certain, you know, truths or stories that perhaps are not necessary.
Right. I can get that. There's a few movies that I've watched that I guess something similar to what you were saying, like Vice, that came out a few years ago about Dick Cheney.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen that. Yeah,
it's a movie that felt very unwarranted, I suppose. Like, is like what is this? Like, why are we watching this? Because there is that conversation, which would probably take a whole huge video about what is entertainment and like what's right. Is there any value in this? Right. At all, or like because there's actual consequences of these actual people. Obviously this is fictionalized, but like seeing like, well, why are we doing this kind of a thing? But yeah, that's a whole another conversation, I'm sure.
That's a good conversation.
That's a video in itself.
That is.
I guess we can transition to currently. I kind of altered this a little bit to kind of meet with like what's like currently going on in our lives, but like currently, what is your favorite films of all time?
Oh Jesus, I'm scared of this question.
I think I know Steve.
I've got like my top 10 to 12. I'm looking at them right now, but I've kind of, it's Serpico in no order. Serpico, The French Connection, The Exorcist, Poltergeist, Rosemary's Baby, The Manchurian Candidate, Rocky, Body Double, Blow Up, and Breathless, but not the Godard one, the Richard Gere 1983 one. Those are probably my all-time favorites. Yeah.
I love that you're so confident with that, because I find this such a.
I've had it the same for years.
Yeah, I
find
it's this real. Hard, and I before we started recording, I said to Steve, he'll probably ask us that because I've watched a lot of the Film Journey videos, and I remember once I tried to make a top 10, and I'm like, but what about this, that, or the other? And then it turned into 20 to 30 to 100. Like I just put in. So I am going to handle this by just saying how I feel right now in terms of what's coming to me. So if I shake my head off, I'll let it happen. I would say Mikey and Nikki, definitely. Directed by Elaine May, as well as The Heartbreak Kid, directed by Elaine May. A Woman Under the Influence, of course, directed by Cassavetes. 8.5 by Fellini. I've got the shirt to prove it. We just did a La Strada video. Yeah, I almost got it. I'm running out of space.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I might still get it. Persona for sure. I think Bergman is another one. Just genius filmmaker. What else? Godfather, definitely. It's a Wonderful Life is definitely on there. Jesus, this is really tough. This is really, really hard.
It's funny, you can tell because you're naming all the ones we've recently reviewed.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, just like,
they're coming to your head.
What's coming to me? Shadows, by Cassavetes, is phenomenal debut film. How many is that? I got there 8,
something like that.
Okay, I'll shut off. I'll hit off a couple more, and then from there, I would say, it's so hard. It's just too difficult. I don't know how you guys do this.
Well,
off the top of my head, again, I'm just doing what's coming to me. I would say Rocky really is a phenomenal film about individuality and.
We have one crossover.
We had one. See, that's why it's movie versus film. And God, what am I missing there? I got Raging Bull, of course. My favorite Scorsese, absolutely. So there you go. I can take a few breaths. I might need some coffee.
You're a little bit breathless.
Well, Robert asked, and we talked about this before we came on your show. Robert just now asked, like, how do you guys have that? Well, my criteria has always just been like really on, not like what's important and should I say, it's truly what can I watch more than once in a day?
Yeah.
That's all I'm going with. And to me, that means I love it. And that it hasn't changed my list in like 15 years. Like, yeah, I can watch any of those movies right now. There's a million other movies I love, but I don't want to watch them right now. Right? Like A Woman in Influence, very good. I don't want to watch that again.
I totally do. And I've seen it a million times.
Yeah, but you're wearing a beret.
All right, let's see. Okay, I got a point for Steven, point for Robert. Okay. This is like an even boxing match here.
We only had the one crossover. That's so interesting. Okay, okay, wow.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, it totally does.
It's for the people. It's a great movie. And also is Rocky, is that the film where, or is like, no wait, is Rocky a movie and then Rocky 4 is the film?
Yeah,
Rocky 4 and 5 are the films.
Yeah. I would say 2 to 6 are all movies, and 1
disagree.
is a film.
6 is a film, and 2 is just an extension of 1. I think 1 and 2 are a great epic.
Well, that's true.
And then 3 is a good comic book movie.
I like 4. I like 4 personally.
Yeah,
I love 4 as a comic book movie. I like all of them too.
Yeah,
even 5. It's all right.
I really enjoy it. Well, that's a good point about 2, and 6. Yeah, you know what? That's true.
It's a
6
movie.
It does say a lot about life. Yeah. Okay. There you go. We'll do a Rocky talk.
We don't need to do rock. There it is.
There you go. We'll cut this clip out. We'll put it on the channel. All right. Well, I guess we can kind of wrap things up a little bit and just kind of ask you some final thoughts. What do you think, just in general, of anything else you want to kind of mention, or before we kind of wrap things up?
Steve?
Well, Robert, do we do our Patreon pitch here?
I see what you're saying, like pitch-wise. We are launching a Patreon account page. Well, we haven't totally decided. Is it safe to say the 1st, Steve, of March?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
As well. So very, very soon we will have 4 different tiers.
That's right.
With different things that you can get. That if people go to our YouTube page at youtube.com/movie versus film, you will please also subscribe, and we'll have a video about the Patreon, which will come soon. On top of that, I think, what else could I just some final touches. It's funny because I always saw myself as like, it's I guess it sort of sounds like a contradiction because I'm called the film guy. But as many movies as I've seen, there is so much that I still want to see, and things like the Criterion Channel and Canopy and just being like, even a scholar, wrote most of the books on Cassavetes, Ray Carney, like he's got a list that I'm still working through on his website of films that that were not well known, like small independent films that he really likes. And there's so much out there that I really feel like I've seen a couple of drops in the ocean. I mean, even now we're in this position where there's a push, of course, for diversity and for women to direct more, which of course I agree with, and just really looking out more diverse films or films. Elaine May is one of my favorite filmmakers. Same with Shirley Clark. The Connection we recently reviewed as well. It's a phenomenal film. So there's just so much to see. So I think people should always be trying to discover more and more.
I agree. You actually, and this is so funny, like leave it to the film guy to say exactly that. And no, that I agree. The only difference is, not that I disagree, and I'm not saying this to be contrary, like truly, as you were talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I honestly, and Robert knows this, contrary to the Criterion Channel and Canopy, I watch a lot of Prime and Netflix. Surprise, surprise.
I never do.
On Prime, well, because you weren't, look at the beret again.
Look at this.
On Prime,
all right.
There is a whole bunch of on Prime of like 70s and 80s exploitation B action movies and horror movies that I'm trying to dig my way through. And there's so many. And I, honestly, if you're looking for there, you have not seen everything, be it like the quote unquote important films Robert's talking about, or the popcorn movies I'm talking about, taking all those streamers into account, and something we'll be addressing via our Patreon page. There's so much out there that I really, I'll be scrolling and I'll be like, what the hell is Chuck?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, let's watch that. Anyway, there's so much out there, and it's true. I used to think I've seen it all. No, I haven't. Yeah. Oh my God,
nobody has.
No,
except for Scorsese, maybe.
Yeah, except him.
Because he's good, because he's seen all, like he's seen both me and Robert's type of movies.
Yeah,
like he can talk about all of it. So yeah, him and yeah.
No, it's true. It's so that's also what I'm looking forward to the most, is just finding more and more of those same feelings I had when I was 16. The fact that still happens.
Chasing the dragon.
When I see something. What was that, Steve?
Chasing the Dragon. You're looking for that rush again.
It's a drug reference, I think.
Nathan knows. So it's a heroin
doesn't
reference.
Register for me. Sorry. But yeah, and I still get it. Whether it's Ozu or Bresson, or it's just like, whoa, this I haven't seen stuff like this before. So there you go. Yeah.
Love it. Fucking
well, it's all great, and I love that. Like I said earlier in the video, I love the rebranding, and I also love that you guys are gonna be doing this this Patreon venture, and I think it's gonna be great. So
thank you.
I hope that everyone can check out Rob and Steve, movie versus film, and also obviously in the description there's gonna be links to their channel. Anywhere else you want us to find, like Instagram or?
Yeah, our Instagram, movie versus film 101, I think is our Instagram. And what else do we have? Facebook.
We're on Twitter. We're just recently
TikTok
on
now.
TikTok,
which is movie versus film.
Yeah. I'll you know what? It's so funny because
apparently.
Because you can't put sometimes even movie versus film is taken. So you have to put like movie _ film or whatever. So I'll send you the links, Nathan, if you because I can't even remember all the different names.
I know on TikTok we got in early enough. It is just movie versus film. We got that one.
Okay, right.
Yeah, but everything else
for all the younger viewers.
For all you kids out there wanting to watch Criterion films.
TikTok is, I guess, the place to be. I am so behind on that. I don't even know. I just got Twitter last year.
I love TikTok. I'm hooked on TikTok now.
Everyone that gets into it, I've heard that. I haven't. I went into it to open the account and went, here. I don't care.
Yeah, there's a whole other video.
This shit.
We should do a versus of the social media versus candle
life.
and the game of life, like the board game.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
I just played that.
I love
I
that
hated
game.
it.
Oh,
Oh, good.
Me and my
Here we
wife
go
played
again.
it, and we thought
how
it
do you
was
hate
so
it?
boring because it was just the day to day. I thought, what is this? Give me some. Where's the imagination in this game?
It's in the colors. That's about it.
I should call it what life can be. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like let's get drunk somewhere along the way. Let's get high, or like, you know, it was just like, you know, graduating. Money.
Your son got arrested for possession of something.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It's like, oh, that never happened to me. But
where are the bumps
happen.
along the road? This isn't a game
Right.
of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both again for joining and having fights here too. I love it.
I held back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Nathan,
yes,
thanks so
thank
much.
you.
This was a real honor for us. We both really like your channel as well, and I really admired your collection behind you. Is phenomenal.
It's cool, man.
Thank you.
I don't have anything like that.
It took me a little bit, but I'm slowing down now, as a lot of people know. But that's just so I can take time to appreciate kind of the stuff that I already have. So.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Here we are. But once again, thank you, Rob and Steve, for joining. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. I'm curious to know what you thought. Down in the comment section down below, tell us about these battles that we had. You know, like who won which round. You know, we can have this Rocky style, Raging Bull style, I suppose. That would be a lot of fun. But yes, thank you all so much for watching this video. Like I said, comment down below, hit the notification bell, share it, and we'll see you all next time. I'm not jonesing around.
Thank you.